there, I'm Leanne Harris, CEO for Keller Williams Portland Central, and today I'm getting to know your realtor. We have Linn Holdhusen here to talk to us about what's going on in his business. How are you, Linn?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. We have had the opportunity to talk for a little while before this interview today, and one of the things that we're constantly talking about with you, or that I like to come back to, is your leadership. And you're running a team here at Keller Williams, and you've got some big goals going into the next year. What's your story in real estate? Because I was there the day you started, or
Sure.
close to after, and I know where you came from, so I think people are going to be interested in this.
Yeah, pretty close. So in 2013, I had been a trainer, a personal trainer and a fitness director, manager at a gym here in Portland, Lloyd Athletic Club, since about 2000. Although I had done different things throughout that time, I was a lender for a year. I just, I have varied interests, so I would try different things. When I became a trainer in 2000, I was actually in this kind of weird transition between being an accountant and becoming a trainer. And one of the things that I was looking at doing even in 2000 was becoming a real estate agent. But I became a personal trainer, and it really took a lot of my time. So I did that for 13 years. I really loved it.
I mean, this is so diverse though, like an accountant and then hey, I'm working out constantly. Like,
right.
Where did that transition come in?
Well, the accounting, for me, accounting was the first job that I had out of college. That was what I got my degree. I got my degree in accounting and business. So I went to work for Pacificor as an accountant for the first couple of years. For me, being an accountant and someone who had to sit in an office every day was absolutely soul crushing. I couldn't do it. There was no interaction with people. I mean, very little, just the people that I worked with who were great, but it just wasn't new ever, And I'd always been into fitness. I think that the thing is for me is that it really helped my own leadership at that time, because I'd never really led myself. I just kind of let myself do whatever I did. Yeah. And this really gave me intentionality and purpose, and it really directed me as a human being. You know what I mean? It changed me completely. And so doing that, I really didn't have any choice. I had to do it, because it was all I cared about at the time was fitness. And just, I had huge goals though. At the time, 2000, it was it was pre all of the things that we have now. And so, I wanted to do videos, and I wanted to do an infomercial and write a book, all these things. And I think that for me, which is a trap of me in everything that I do, is that I pour myself so into one thing that it's hard for me to, I don't multitask well. I've thought I have.
We talked about that today.
Yeah, we did talk about it, but I don't. I mean, I'm pretty much an all in on whatever I'm doing. And so for me, my mindset has to stay directed towards what's most important, because I'm also easily distracted. You know what I mean? So I can go all in on little squirrel chases all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So with fitness, it was sort of the thing, I was just really focused on my clients. But it takes a lot of energy from me. And so at the end of the day, I either didn't push myself hard enough to do these other things, or I just got into the day-to-day too much, So I lost my dreams, so to speak, about what it was supposed to be. So 2013 had done a ton of different things. And you want me to talk about what I came from to that?
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, in 2010, I moved to Montana, and I started a commercial marijuana grow, a medical grow in Montana. Well, that went well till it didn't for about 6 months. I mean, I was just getting it to the spot where it was I built this giant thing. And then one day I woke up and the DEA woke me up and said, get on the ground.
Not anymore.
But
we'll make it legal in a couple months.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was pioneering, which isn't a great thing for that industry, But DEA took all the stuff. I went to Las Vegas. I was planning on going to California to kind of restart that sort of business. But I just kind of, for better way of saying it, I just kind of lost my nerve. I just didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to go to jail. That was never my intention. I just liked what I was doing at that time. Yeah. I wanted to make it into a big business, but it just wasn't the time. And so I spent some time in Las Vegas, sort of dabbling in being a professional poker player.
Okay, so this is my favorite part, and I love this part of the story. So I don't think that people know that you're a professional card player. And here's the deal, it actually shows up in your real estate negotiations.
For sure.
And so
well, sometimes when I'm talking to clients, I'll be like, do you play poker? And it's rare that they do, so they don't really, but then I'll still say my analogy because people understand the game in its general way, I'm not, I mean, the thing is when you say that, like people don't know you're a pro card player. I'm like, I don't know that I could say that. I took a shot at it and I really enjoy the game. It's definitely a passion of mine, but I don't know that I could ever say I made it pro because, it's same thing.
Most people don't make that much money off of playing cards. And
sure.
so that is almost like, yeah, you were a professional.
It was a fun life for me. I really tried to run it like a business. I mean, I'd wake up, go work out, go to the casino, play for 8 to 12 hours, repeat. But that's, once again, that's just how I am. If I do something, it's 100, it's 110, And so
you show for your clients. You are 100% for every client. And honestly, it shows up in your reviews. So every time that I'm looking at your reviews, I'm like, what are you it's like they're your only person. And yet we just talked about the amazing numbers that you had this last year with your team, but they feel like they're the only person. So it shows up there too.
I love that you said that because we didn't talk about this. So that's awesome because it feels really authentic, The thing is, when I was a trainer, what people would my biggest, and people didn't leave reviews then. They just would tell you how they felt about it, But the biggest compliment that I always received, and I received it so many times throughout my career as a trainer, was you make me feel like, because, we're in a gym, there's people everywhere, and people would always say, like, you make me feel like I'm the only person that exists. And I know there's people everywhere. There's people that are trying to get your attention, and you'll just ignore them because you're talking to me. And so it really kind of taught me how to, you and I were just talking too about how I love to talk. I'm also a really great listener. I can shut up and let people do that for themselves with me. And I think that it creates a connection and a bond. And I think that in real estate, I make them my people,
Totally. That's how I became such good friends with you.
Right.
I just like to talk so much. You would just sit there and listen to me.
Yeah. I find you interesting. You find me interesting. We get to trade, it's great.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, what do you think is the high and low of being in real estate?
Well, actually, let me say my little thing, though. I didn't say anything about how I got into real estate. So,
we just talked about poker. All right.
2013, I knew that sort of things were changing with the gym. Management was changing. I was gonna go back to being just 100% trainer, not a manager. I didn't want to really do that, and so Nathan Brown at the time was one of my clients, and so I'm like, I'm gonna get into real estate. He's like, cool. So I joined KW. And I'm super glad I did. I got so lucky to end up here, I really did. So did that for about 6 months by myself. Called all my people to the point where they were like, yeah, man, we get it. Like, you're in real estate. We'll call you when we're ready, but we're not.
Insurance.
Yeah. And so, did a lot of different things, did some prospecting, did some FISBOs and canceleds and all of that. Basically started building a team about a year into it. Had different iterations of that for 4 to 5 years. And then,
so hold on 1 second. So for those people that are real estate agents that are listening, different iterations of what a team looked like for 4 to 5 years. So many people will stop after the first 3 months. And I'm like, well, you didn't do it long enough.
Yeah.
You don't have enough history on it. So keep going. You got to do it multiple times.
Yeah. There was one person on our team who was with us a majority of the time, and we'd pick up other people and, they'd go, and then we'd pick up other people. But there was one person, and I guess that's kind of been one thing that's kind of always been with the team. There's always been a core kind of group, Yeah. But in 2017, I was lucky enough to recruit Brett Starr to the team, as well as our director of ops, Sarah Furneaux. At the time, my wife, Caitlin, was on the team as well, who was instrumental in getting us to that point. So in 2017,
I was there in Amsterdam when she became your wife.
That's right. Absolutely. It was awesome. That was great. So basically in 2017, we started this, and we still have some of that core group from 2017, although, still different iterations of it even throughout this, but core group remains, And so it's been really great. And like the thing you're saying about how you haven't done it long enough. I had a team for 4 or 5 years coming into now this team, and it feels so different. It's not even the same thing. It's not even close. What I was doing before is nothing like what we're doing now, but had I not done that, I wouldn't get this,
Yeah. That's what it takes, right? Is failing forward, always failing forward.
Right.
Okay. Well, you want to tell us the highs and lows of what real estate is for you?
Yeah. I think overall, like it's not, if I look at it in its totality, it's just a high, in that, it's kind of like a sports season, right? You can still end up champion at the end of the year, but you took some losses. I mean, that's kind of how real estate is, you know, like
Yeah.
you go through the year, there are times where you're just like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. This is the worst thing ever. And then a month later, you can't even remember it happened, and you're in the clouds. You know what I mean?
That's
You're
kind of
just,
like what happens in a transaction. Break that down to even smaller. It's like people, a buyer and a seller go through the transaction, and it is literally a high and a low through the entire transaction. But then in the end, they forget that it all happened.
yeah, I always tell my clients before we even get going on any of this, whether we're buying or selling, nobody's ever more stressed out than when I mean, there's other things in life that do this, but no one's ever more stressed out than when they're buying or selling a house, unless they've just, got endless means, which most people don't. And so it's a stressful thing for them. And so, I just prepare them like the other people are going to act stressed out. You're going to act stressed out, just know everybody's trying to get to this thing, and the way that they do that. So,
Yeah.
but I try to help navigate all of that, obviously,
Yeah, for sure. What are 3 nuggets that people could walk away with?
Yeah, this was the part when you gave me the questions, I was like, I got to prepare for this one. I mean, I think the first part is, find your lead gen. You and I were talking once at an ALC meeting, and, anytime I go to anything motivational, I'm like, oh, there's so much more I could be doing. And I said to you, I'm like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. And you were like, you don't even realize like how well you do this already. And I was like, what do you mean? You're like, there's nobody in your life that doesn't know you're a real estate agent. Fair enough. That's so true. There's nobody that doesn't know that. And so I'm good at self-promotion. But you got to find your way. I mean, I think that no matter what, you have to be prospecting in some way, whether that's your database, whether that's people you don't know. It's probably best to have a mix of both, and then there's other ways, there's so many new ways now. You can do social media. You can just actually, I mean, in the world we live in currently, it's a little bit more tough to build a social network. But I mean, there's some really successful people who they thrive on just that, but you got to find your way. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be consistent about it.
Yep.
That's number 1. I would say number 2 is don't let what happens in the day-to-day detract you from them. Like, you have to be intentional about your mindset. You have to decide how you're going to be, and you can't let the world shift you from how you're going to be. Other people can be not, they can be whatever they're going to be, but also too, like I just said, you're dealing with people who are pretty stressed out. And so you have to stay calm, but you also can't let those things affect you, because hopefully you're doing it at a high enough level where it's happening a lot. And you're not going to remember. You feel like you're going to remember, but you do it enough times and you're like, this isn't going to stick. Like, let's just keep moving here. I mean, as far as the feeling goes. Yeah. So you have to remember what you're trying to achieve with your own head, And then I think the thing is too, is because, real estate agents, we run ourselves. And so if we don't have that mindset, we're not keeping ourselves in an intentional sort of way, I think that we can slip, I think the thing more than anything is that people think like, oh, I got to do this. I have to do all these things. And I mean, it's really just little things. I mean, there have been times where I've slipped, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do the thing that would be the most fun for me to do. That's also going to impact my business and move me forward. So I'll just call the people, my clients that I really, really, really like. You know what I mean? I did that this year. Like, I've done that a couple of different times this year. Every time it's led to multiple transactions, just calling people I like and just chit chatting with them. But I mean, I end up on the phone with them for an hour and a half, which is great. I mean, that means that we've got a good relationship, but I just think that things can turn around so quickly that, if you're feeling like you lost it or whatever, it's just, you just got to get back in there and work just a little bit, and it starts to turn around. And because we work in abundance, you know what I mean? When we work hard, we get a lot. And so, you just got to you got to keep your mind right, I think, is the hardest part, because real estate is also super stressful for us, right? Like, we're the in between, So you just got to keep your head right, because it can be challenging to do. So you got to put good inputs in, good books, good people, stuff like that.
I said to someone today, but I said, you got to stop talking so poorly to yourself.
Oh, I mean,
I don't listen. Yeah, I don't like to listen to that stuff either. I think you and I are very similar that way when it comes to positivity. It's for like, sure. You stop me constantly. I love to kind of almost tease you because I know you're going to call me out on it, but we don't want garbage around us, and complaining equals garbage magnet. We say that at KW, but it's true for you and I. We really believe that. So, okay. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
That's funny. That one was pretty funny. I think that I would probably write some sort of self-development, personal development type of book. It's just where my mind
You're really good at it.
tends to exist. Yeah. So it would probably be that. And then once again, I'd make something to make it more fun for me. So I'd probably base it somewhere. I mean, I find myself constantly just comparing things to poker. So I'd probably make it in the poker vein. You know what I mean? But, like last night I was talking to Caitlin about this, and I was just saying how much to me that sort of life, poker, but just the game, but then the whole thing, relates to life in general, but it relates to real estate so much, like if you really understand that, like how it, like we've got another guy in the office, John, who really was a pro poker player. Like he tells me stories that make me scared about the, the level that he plays at, but it compares to real estate in terms of strategy so much. And I honestly think that that's one of I was doing an interview recently with a new prospect, and I was saying to her, she was like, what are your items of value? And I was like, it's funny when you ask me that question, because it feels like every year I have to remember what my item of value is. And I don't. When I start talking about it, I fully realize it's the fact that I'm a really great communicator, but I love to strategize. I love to, and I think that I know people well enough, which this is the poker thing, is just, it's a people game, really.
Not even just the poker game, it's also your finance background.
Sure.
You study finance. So what a lot of people don't understand is they sit down and have a listing appointment with you, and not only are you thinking about the strategy of it, you're thinking about the negotiation of it, and you're thinking about the financial gain of it. And it's like, how can you not get a bigger win out of working with an agent that has that knowledge, So that's awesome.
Right. Thanks. Yeah. That is what I try to bring, because there's so much to think about, and buyers and sellers don't know what they don't know, which is why we're here, why we exist, and so I really try to be as transparent as I can about everything that's happening. And then that also leads me to building these relationships. I always tell the new people, I'm like, yeah, something came in that didn't matter at all, call your client about it. And they're like, I don't want to bother them. I'm like, no, you're not bothering them. You need to talk to them like as many opportunities as you can while you're in transaction, because you don't always have that many reasons, right?
Yeah.
But people love the communication. At the end of it, I've had more than one person at the end of it be like, so what do we do now? We've been talking every day. Like, you're not going to call us anymore? I'm like, no, I'm still going to call you. Maybe not every day, but like, we'll still talk,
I'll get you a pie for Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
That part, I'm not prepared for that one, but I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's all right. I just want to make sure that I didn't leave anything out.
Nope. I think this was great. I love the questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on with us today. And people will be able to listen to us on Apple Podcast and all over the world now. Thanks for joining us today on Getting to Know Your Realtor. This episode was brought to you by Lifeline for Hope. Be sure to catch us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much again for joining us today. Have a great day.